Hey there, good people of YouTube. Welcome along to Jenny Shows You How. And today what I'm going to do is looking at how to backdate a model railway. You'd look to do this if, say for example, you've built a layout and you've been running 1980s diesels perhaps, and you decide actually I quite like some of these steam locomotives that I see on sale. They're really nice. So I'm going to backdate my layout to an earlier period, and what I'm going to look at here today are a few easy things that you can do with what is a fairly generic shunting layout, and just to make it look like it's from an earlier age. And I'll point out a few of the glaring obvious things, but let's take a look here now. So basically what we have here is, this is Grove Street Yard. It's featured in quite a few of my videos, and as it stands at the moment, it's designed and set up for probably about mid-1970s through to about 1980, something like that. So even though there's no stations here, which are quite useful, if you have a station, then a lot of the station furniture and the signage can be very much a giveaway. But we're starting out here with a little freight layout, so there's nothing like that to give away the period quite so much. Now, first things first, the most glaring thing is obviously the rolling stock on here. So every single one of these wagons is going to have to take a hike. And I'm going to go through my collection, and what I wanted to do is to backdate this to probably about 1922, 1923. It's probably a bit of a big ask, and there are a few things which are going to be a little bit of an anomaly, but not necessarily enough to really stick out like a glaring thumb to anybody other than somebody who's really looking for the minutiae of the detail. So things like those diesel locomotives, they'll be going. The rolling stock, in fact, the only things I'm really going to be looking to keep here are these little Peckett locomotives, because they're to an extent a little bit timeless, but they'll certainly fit in with a 1922, 1923 sort of a theme. So I'm going to keep those, and we're going to get rid of all of the other rolling stock. Right, well, we've cleared all of the rolling stock off here, and I've actually had a look around, and I've found some suitable pre-grouping rolling stock. By and large, I think some of those are probably a little bit outside of the period, but ready to run pre-grouping. It's very, very hard to come by. So I've picked out there a few local wagons to Trafford Park, and also anything that is obviously pre-grouping. And I've also picked out a couple of extra locomotives there, Lancashire and Yorkshire 242 radial tank, and the Robinson 9J, I think it was later, LNER J11, in Great Central Railway livery. So suitable locomotive stock there. Going back to the main layout here, what immediately springs to mind as anachronistic for 1922 is Gene Hunt's Ford Cortina sat there at the entrance to the scrapyard. He's probably off helping a witness fall down some stairs somewhere, as is Gene Hunt's way. And there's also actually in the scrapyard these two vehicles there, which are quite clearly not really of 1922 vintage, and certainly not really applicable to be in the scrapyard, but we'll try and think of something to do there. We might just conveniently ignore them, because taking those off would be really going against an easy conversion to an earlier period, because what we want to do is to be able to actually change this between many different periods quite readily. So we'll have a think about that, but certainly Gene Hunt's Cortina can come off there, and somewhere over here we've got a Series 1 Land Rover. Now, Series 1 Land Rovers are normally pretty user-friendly, going right back to the 1950s, because they were very long-lived, did hang about, but we're going before that. So Land Rover only came about just immediately post Second World War, so we're going to have to get rid of that as well. A lot of the people that you see, now it's interesting that fashion, certainly working overalls and things like that, doesn't really change an awful lot. Hairstyles do, so you'd have people with their mutton chops and various different flat caps and stuff, but at this scale I think we can get away with those, and certainly right through until probably even early 90s these gentlemen would probably be good enough to pass muster. After that, of course, you get the evils of high visibility stuff turning up, and the old health and safety cliffboard merchants put in quite a few changes, but up until then I think things largely remained unchanged. Now we might have a few issues with, we can see there, the ESSO logo. So at some point I'm going to go away and I'm going to look up when that logo actually dates from, but it may be that I can get away actually just with, I'll probably remove the ESSO, leave the stars, and those tanks will look perfectly fine in any period without the branding on. And if we go over here, no, there's no real branding on these tanks here, so we're all right with those. The electric lights there, well, they are fairly archaic looking things. They were a Merit product. They don't work, they're non-working. And the actual model dates back to, I think, the 1960s, but certainly they're the sort of lamps that maybe we can get away with. I'll have to again look up, when did electricity really start to become more widespread, being used for things like this rather than having oil or gas lamps? But again, I'll investigate that. One of the other things that I want to do whilst I'm undertaking this work is that signal there. It's been a thorn in my side since I built this layout. I put it in because I had it, and I had this big box of stuff, and I was a bit too eager to load this model up with whatever I had to hand. So I'm going to take this opportunity to remove that signal once and for all. And then also on the exit to the fiddle yard, we've got a colour light signal. Now, this particular example is a Hornby 001. It actually does work, and the model itself dates back to 1950s, late 1950s. So certainly if we were backdating to the BR period, this wouldn't need to go. But it's never really felt in character to the model. The model is, after all, trying to be a small portion of Trafford Park. So I'm going to take the opportunity to remove that. We may have to touch up the ground underneath it. But apart from that, I think a lot of the industrial buildings, certainly industrial buildings hang around an awfully long time. And certainly right through to the 1980s, which is about the latest that I tend to run this. All of this is perfectly fine. So let's get on then, shall we? What we actually find on this layout is actually a lot of things, because it's a transportable layout. We can see that items such as the Land Rover looking a bit silly there on its side. Everything's actually just fixed in. So underneath, this makes changing vehicles on a layout like this very easy. We've just got a screw, a tiny little screw there. We can see all the point motors, and somewhere over here Gene Hunt's Ford Cortina is also similarly held to the layout, and it's really easy with the Oxford diecast models. They screw into the boxes that they come in to stop them flopping about in transit, and you can use that hole to very surreptitiously screw them all down. It's brilliant. But this in turn, rather than gluing them, this means that it's very easy to change all of these things. Now, the other thing we're going to go hunting for is somewhere around here, I believe there, is that colour light signal. And we can see that the rather messy bunch of wires. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to trim these off, and I'm going to see if I can get that signal actually off the other side. But let's start off with the cars. Right, what we're going to do is just quite simply screwdriver in there and unscrew this. At some point the car's probably going to spin on the top side. Let's go around, and what we can see is there, car comes straight off. So what we can see underneath there is the screw went into the enlarged hole in the chassis. These Oxford diecast items really do lend themselves to being able to be swapped out in this way. There's a bit of dust on there. But we're going to put that into storage, and we're going to, well, if you had another vehicle that was suitable to go on the other end of this screw, then you could do. But the period 1922, I don't really have anything suitable for a period that early. And indeed, a lot of what you would have seen out and about would have been things like horse and carts and stuff. And I really just don't have anything like that. So I'm probably going to leave them free, and we'll just make sure that the hole itself isn't too obtrusive. So there we have it. We've got the two cars off. So when Gene Hunt gets back to the scrapyard from having an evil perpetrator maliciously and brutally headbutt his steel toe caps, he will find his car missing, but it's not really any concern to us because we're going back in time to the 1920s. And what we're going to do is we're going to delve into this pot of wiring down here, and we're going to try and get rid of that signal whilst we're down here. I must admit that in all the time since I actually built this model, I can't actually remember how this attaches. There doesn't appear to be a screw on the underside, and I think it is quite literally just glued. So I'm going to get in there and I'm going to try and chivvy it up with a screwdriver and just break any glue there is. I don't actually want to damage it because that is quite an old item, and it is in and of itself a pretty good signal, and I may actually reuse that on Bolton Trinity Road. But certainly, let's just have a look now, and what we can see here is that pretty much all evidence of Gene Hunt's Cortina has gone. All that's left is we can just see there the top of the screw, which I've actually left screwed in because I know if you take these things out, they get lost. Now, if I had a suitable vehicle to put on there, I could re-screw it in and nobody would be any the wiser. But I haven't, so I'm going to just leave that be. And over here, where the Land Rover was, in fact, actually you can see the dusty outline of the Land Rover, but I'm going to clean that up, and that's pretty much not really going to be all that noticeable. If I was absolutely bothered, then it's quite possible I could temporarily fix one of these barrels slap bang over the top, and when you wanted to remove it, just screw the screw back up and it will pop the barrel back off. But I'm going to have a go at cleaning this up a little bit and removing that signal. So here we are, and I've got that out from the hole. It was just glued in, and I've cut the wires underneath, and just a case of pulling that through with the pliers that you see there. So hopefully we can get that done, and any marks that's left in that grass, just a little dab of the white glue and stick some of the scatter over the top, and you'd never really know that there was a signal ever there. And I think it's more in keeping for the layout as a whole just not to have that, so it's not something that's going to be going back on when it gets re-updated, suitable for the 1970s. As for the signal at the other end, I'm just going to get in there and lever that out, and again, any hole that's left is going to get filled with a little bit of glue and some spare grass fibres. What we can see here is finally managed to get that signal out from there. It proved a little bit stubborn, but what we've done over here, we used these tools. So we've got a fairly chunky flat-bladed screwdriver. That's very good for getting underneath and just trying to prise the glue loose. We've got a set of pliers there, and I love this tool. It's a dinky little hammer. It's actually, if you can see there, it's just a lovely little tool. It's a very short handle, but it's perfect for around the house, as well as for modelling stuff. So we normally use this, we'll leave it in a drawer in the kitchen, and it's really good for putting up pictures and all sorts, but certainly in this job, because it's got such a short handle, it's very good for getting into tight little spaces without taking out loads of the scenery around it. So well worth recommending this tool. This particular one was bought from, well, I suppose I shouldn't really do any commercial endorsements, but I'll give you the initials, B and Q, and yeah, okay. But it's certainly a great little tool. And what we can see there actually is there's a little bit of a mark where that signal came from, but to be honest, a little bit of grass fibres and you won't even know it was ever there. So now we've got all those clear, our attention comes to really the contents of the scrapyard, and a lot of this actually isn't it isn't in its original form, shall we say. So there's chunks of Airfix battleships, tank kits from Tamiya, all sorts of just any old rubbish that was knocking about, and it's great because it just looks a little bit industrial, but not necessarily a specific item. Now, the ex-Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway pug there, well, these started potentially going for scrap even during the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway period. So it's not inconceivable that this could have been an early cull from Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway stock, sold out of service, and then through poor maintenance and whatever, it's just ended up in the scrapyard. So we can live with that. It's these two really which are probably going to be the most awkward. Now, one of the things you could do is to try and sheet them over with something like a tarpaulin, and it's perfectly possible that well, the bare chassis that you see there, it's actually an ambulance from the RAF recovery set. I suppose you could pass that off as being the chassis of some former World War One army lorry that's fallen on hard times and ended up there. But that there, the cab shape is just completely wrong. The cab is just far too 1930s onwards to really fit with being in a scrapyard in a 1922-23 themed layout. So over here, what we've done is I've got a sheet of loo roll and just taken a sheet out from the bathroom, brought it in here. Now we don't want the perforated ends because they look a bit naff, so I've cut a section out of the centre. And what I'm actually going to do here, we've got this piece of tissue paper, so it's got a slight texture to it, and we're going to just place it in over here. With the aid of a screwdriver here, we're just going to sort of tuck it in more than anything else. And what we're trying to do is make it look like an object that's been sheeted up for whatever reason in the scrapyard. And it just obscures whatever it is that is. So, you know, it could be anything. Just being kept safe from the weather by some kind of tarpaulin. The tissue paper does kind of fight against you, but that's okay. Once we've got it in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and get some brush cleaning fluid and enamel paint, and we'll give it a wash, and this stuff will just soak right up any of that stuff, and when it dries it will actually hold its shape somewhat better. So what we can see here is started to damp it down. This is just with the dirty rubbish at the bottom of my brush cleaning plot. I hadn't actually added any paint, and the reason for this is really I just thought if I damped it all down, then what will happen when I start to add some thinned down paints is that will run a lot nicer. And also we've got this kind of base, almost like a rust colour. So we'll see how we go. But certainly the thinness is helping to hold down that tissue paper into more of the shape that I want. It's not ideal, but we're just trying to obscure the cab of that truck. And it is done in a way that can be fairly readily taken off afterwards and cleaned up with a dirty wash. You'd never really know that it had been there. So here we are, we've put a coat of paint on there, well thinned with the dirty brush cleaning fluid, and it's kind of helped that to mould into the contours. And the colour I've actually used, it's a Humbrol enamel and it's matte number 102. But really you can use any colour you like, but matte colours are probably the best, and certainly with all the muck from the brush cleaning fluid plus the texture from the actual tissue paper, that should actually look fairly reasonable. And when it dries it will actually hold that shape, and the solvents that are in the paint will also help it to slightly adhere to things. So hopefully that won't be coming off on its own accord, but certainly it's something that's fairly readily removed should I ever want to remove it. But actually, that might actually work out all right, so not really a problem. And I'm going to leave that chassis there as is, because I think I can probably get away with that. And the tank that was on the back of that truck, again, it's something that's fairly generic, so it should be all right. So what I'm going to turn my attention to now is we can see the hole there where that signal was removed, and then if we go across the layout and look down there, we've got another hole over here that needs filling in. So to do that, we've got PVA. I actually use this school PVA. This is from Hobbycraft. Other stores are available to get this from. You can get it all over. It's great stuff. In fact, I need to get some more. So one of the little tips, when your bottle's nearly out, make sure it's sealed so it doesn't all dribble out. But I leave it just upside down for a little while, and you'll find the PVA that's left in it will dribble its way down there, and when you come to use it, you're not forever shaking it and trying to get it out. And then next to it we've got the grass fibres there in a little bag, and it's pretty much the same stuff that you see down here. And what we'll do is just sprinkle that onto the wet glue, which in turn will be on these marks, and you'll never really see that they were there. In fact, even in some cases, if you go looking for it, it's hard to tell where these were. So I'm going to crack on with that, and I'm going to show you the finished results. So we can see here that we've done some gluing and got a little bit of that fibres on there. And what we're going to do next is we've just got a little bit of extra firm hold hairspray. And this is pretty much like spray mount. It's a glue, and it will hold any loose fibres pretty well in place. So we're going to spray that over there, and we've also done this little patch over here, and it actually does look a little bit brighter there, and I think in part that's partly dust that needs cleaning out of some of the rest of this, and also partly because that hasn't been exposed to any UV light, and it is quite shocking how much damage UV light can do, especially to things which aren't colour fast. But we're getting there. It's not going to look like an eyesore where something has definitely been removed, and drying of this is coming on nicely. In fact, actually under the heat of the lamps in here, I'm getting quite high on white spirit fumes, but it should be pretty well dry in a matter of maybe 20 or 30 more minutes. Well, we're all done now. So what we've got here is we've fixed down the static grass, and those patches all weather down in time. And we've put on our suitable 1922-1923 period rolling stock. Well, to an extent, there's over there in the oil terminal, what is apparent is that actually tanker wagons, it's a little bit tricky to get suitable ones. So I've been through my collection, and the paper maker Chemicals is actually a 1950s tank wagon. So I'm going to be looking around through all of my display cabinets for a slightly more suitable wagon. And what we really want is, you can see there with the sort of crisscrossed bracing wires around a large central filler. I'm going to try and find all the wagons that look like that, because they appear to at the very least be the more suitable of wagons for this period, so I'll go hunting for them. We've got a Midland Railway brake van and local wagon T&C Scowcroft and Son, with also the Garstang and Knott End Railway flat wagon, just for a bit of variety more than anything else. But the Great Central 9J is a little bit out of place with the Midland Railway brake van, but it's just so hard to get ready to run wagons that I think I'm probably going to have to live with that. I did investigate. I do have a Midland Railway 060 tender locomotive. I think it's a 3F or a 4F that came from Bachmann in the Midland Railway livery, and that would actually match up nicely with that brake van. But I'm having a little bit of difficulty in actually getting the front coupling to go in. There's a bit of flash that needs removing. So for the time being, the Robinson 9J will probably just have to stand in. And then we've also got the lovely Lancashire and Yorkshire Aspinall 242 tank. And really, a lot of the rolling stock is what makes these layouts more than anything else, I suppose. As long as there's no glaring inaccuracies, it does allow you to set a layout that has been on purpose made a little bit on the more generic side, like this one has, with no specific age relating details. Makes them very easy to backdate, and in turn it allows you to move the time period modelled forward a little bit as well, within reason. And certainly I'm pushing my luck a bit here with 1922, but certainly this layout really does lend itself to be backdated to the 1950s, 1960s, possibly even to late 1930s, but it's certainly something I need to get some road vehicles, I think, suitable for the period, because they will also help make the scene. Or more likely see if I can get some horse and carts, and that might be a bit tricky, but I'll see what there is on the market. But we can see here what we've actually done is got rid of most of the really garish standout anomalies that would date this layout as being later than 1922. So we'll see how it goes. Certainly it now provides a nice little home for at least some of the pre-grouping rolling stock which I have been collecting. I've also got some South Eastern and Chatham Railway wagons which will be nice to use on this, although somewhat out of their area. And there is a pack available from the Backman Collectors Club which includes a Great Central and Cheshire Lines liveried wagons, and it's something that I may track down and buy one of those sets purely for those two wagons, and certainly they'll go nicely with the Robinson 9J that we see there. But I hope this video has been informative to you, and I hope it's given you a few good ideas of things you can do just to, justify some of these pretty locomotives and items of rolling stock which do get released, and a lot of people just feel that they have to succumb to buying some of these. So this hopefully has given you a few ideas how to give yourself a means to actually run these if you're really looking to be a bit more prototypically accurate within reason. Anyway, I hope this has been very informative to you, and if it has, don't forget to like this video, share it too, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already done so, and you'll be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. And don't forget as well, you can also make suggestions in the comments down below about things you might like to see in future videos to do with railway modelling, or indeed some of the other things that we've done videos on this channel. But until next time, you've been a wonderful audience, so really glad to have you along for the ride. You take very good care of yourself, and this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying until next time, bye for now.